Hello, I am Elan Kelman from University College London in the UK and the University of Agder in Norway. You are listening to the Coffee and Geography podcast, so grab yourself a brew and enjoy the listen.
Hello, everybody, and we're back for another episode of Coffee and Geography. And I now have, for the first time this special season for Climate Ambassadors, one of my climate ambassadors from the east of England, Rachel Newell. How are you today?
Hi, thanks, Kit. Really, thanks for inviting me on. It's really kind of you to offer me a slot.
Yeah, well, I'm like, so which one of my climate ambassadors are going to take the bait? And I'm going to
But you're inundated.
Well, I think a lot of people are like really want to do it, but they're like so nervous because like the vast majority of people who do this are like they're like, I'm not podcasters, I've never done anything, I've never done radio, I don't want to do this kind of thing. And then some people are like, but I don't know if work will let me and stuff like that. It's like it really isn't. This is not a professional production. I mean, folks, if you're watching us because Rachel has given us consent, thank you, Rachel, to video as well as audio. If you're watching us a video, I haven't got my green screen background sorted today. The light is poor today, and you can see that. Well, I've got, as Rachel said before we started recording, I've got this really silly aura going on, and I've tried my best to key it out, but it's a cloudy day. The light in this room is terrible, but we're just going to roll with it. So, but I don't know. I think I've done a good balance here, but
yeah,
I've got it about right. Yeah, so to introduce everybody, Rachel. So Rachel is the social sustainability manager at Kier Construction, which is a big company, but they've got offices all over the country. And you studied social anthropology at university and a master's in human rights law. And in between university, you spent a year in Colombia volunteering for an organization that supported street children. After university, Rachel worked for a women's human rights organization in New York called MADRE. Is it MADRE? MADRE? How do you, I mean, it's an acronym.
MADRE,
so
yeah.
MADRE.
No, MADRE means mother in Spanish. So it comes from the word for mother.
Okay. So you work for a human rights organization in New York called MADRE. And then Rachel, right, wow, we might, crikey, this is something I didn't know about you. So Rachel arrived a week before 9/11 and saw for firsthand the fallout from the event and the effects on the grassroots organization. So, that we supported in Afghanistan. I mean, crikey, I mean, looking at your bio, it's really, what a story already. And then you finish off saying, you've worked for numerous charities supporting for 16 years before working at Kier. You love your role, very varied. And you're particularly interested in the intersection between social and environment sustainability. Rachel could not sure you can separate the two. And in her free time, she loves beekeeping, rowing on the river, sailing.
Yeah, not rowing. Everyone always thinks if you see it written down, it looks like rowing. But no, it's rowing.
Rowing on that's it. Rowing on the river, not arguing. Yeah. It's like with my quote unquote brand name, Jog Ramblings. People are like, is it Geo Ramblings, Jog Rumbles? What? No, like Ramblings as in it's both. I talk too much and I like to go out and travel and explore. So yeah, so for me it's both, but rowing or rowing.
Yeah, I don't like arguing, but I do like rowing.
Yeah, right. So we're sitting down in the Coffee and Geography coffee house, and you've got your brew with you. So what do you usually bring to the table when you or you order when you sit down for a cup of tea or coffee or a hot drink?
Yeah, I'm probably mainly a tea drinker, I would say. I took tea bags when I go away with me. I take tea bags in case they're not up to scratch. But I love the smell of coffee, but I'm not good with caffeine. I mean, I think I can feel it. As soon as I drink it, I can feel it entering my bloodstream and I get a little bit twitchy. So yeah, I'm more of a tea drinker.
Yeah, so there was when I was between my first and second year of university. So crikey, this was back in summer of 2002. Like I did Camp America, the summer camp thing, and like I was so homesick for tea that my mum actually sent me a package to the camp, like of PG tips, like like 100 bags of tea. I was like, I'm one, and I'm thinking nowadays, that was back in 2002. So, but thinking nowadays, can you imagine that being ripped open like in customs or in something like that? I'm thinking, what the hell is
probably.
it?
Yeah, those care packages are really important though if you're away for a long period of time. I think I used to get Marmite sent as well. She was a bit heavier. Marmite and tea bags.
Yeah. I love
things
Marmite,
you can't get anywhere. In Colombia, they had Lipton tea, which just isn't the same.
It really isn't. I mean, they do all right iced tea, but they can stay well away from hot tea for as far as I'm concerned. But that was all they had at this summer camp was Lipton, actually. And all of the British staff, all the staff who were British or really, really wanted a decent cup of tea, but like, I was almost became like a...
You were a dealer. Yeah.
I was like...
you had your rations.
You got any more PG tips? I was like, I'll look under my stash on my bed. So I sneak it into the breakfast area. So yeah, that's I'm with you on that one. And is there any particular tea you like, or is it just good old fashioned breakfast tea?
Yeah, good old fashioned. I mean, even tea I have to go sometimes decaffeinated in the afternoon. But I got a advent calendar this year we're tea bag advent calendar. My partner had a whiskey one, I had a tea one, with like chalk and cheese. But this is left over from that I'm drinking, and it's called Candlelit Library. And it is a mixture. I have to get my glasses on for this because it's got so many different things in. But this one is Japanese tea, Sri Lankan black tea, Chinese, I can't even read it, Pui tea, Japanese something tea, and then ginkgo biloba and desiccated coconut. But yeah, it tastes quite good. Bit different.
Yeah. Okay, so close friend of mine and previous podcast guest, Hermione, I know you're listening. Can you please email me about what tea we're talking about? Because you'll be like, oh right, it's pronounced like this and it's this. So
yes,
Hermione,
probably. I can't even read it.
Yeah, so let us know, please. Hermione is a bit of a tea connoisseur, and I think you're back in China now, Hermione, and I miss you so much because we used to see each other at the Geographic Association conference. Just a shout out there to Hermione. Right, so as I've already mentioned to folks, is that so you're here in the east, but you're in kind of like the Cambridge area. So what I like to ask folks, Rachel, about kind of like the places where they're located, where they've lived, where they've experienced. You said you've been to Colombia and places like that, and you're kind of, and at the moment you're kind of sort of located just outside of Cambridge. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of nearer to Ely, I would say, in between.
Near to Ely, yeah. So you're kind of you're in between kind of Cambridge and Ely. So actually not too far away from our previous guest, actually. In fact, you're folks who listened to last week, you'll know like Rachel is far closer to the Fens than what my previous guest told us.
Yeah, we were right in the middle of it, really.
Yeah.
Definitely in the Fens. Very rural.
So the question I like to ask folks is Rachel, is kind of like for you. So Rachel as the person and your identity, I mean, how does kind of like the where you are in the UK kind of like form your identity now? Have you always lived in this part of the country? Have you always been someone who's from the Fenland, Cambridgeshire area, or have any aspects from anywhere else you've lived like formed part of your identity? Have you brought anything back from Colombia that's now formed a part of your identity? Just tell us a little bit about what's geographically what's formed Rachel the person today.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I've never really felt like I've had roots until now. I think I feel a lot more that I'm, live somewhere and I've got, you start to form that identity. I think I lived in so many different places growing up. Born in Bedford, and then from age 13, really moved to Cambridge with my mum. Lived in Cambridge, and then all over really. I went to university in Brighton. It's really funny going. I was you try and pick where you want to go to university. You think, where I'm going to have these amazing three years of my life. You just think about the social side of it, don't you? And I was really worried going to Brighton. I thought it was going to be all old people, sitting out on deck chairs on the beachfront. And it's nothing like that at all. It's an amazing place to live. So Brighton was pretty cool. And then a year in Nottingham. And I think it's always hard as well when you live a while abroad, because the cultural difference is so much bigger than, you know, moving around the UK possibly. And you kind of feel homesick for the UK when you're abroad, just small things, you know, the food and all sorts. And then when you come back from being abroad for a long time, you feel homesick all over again. You miss everything you got used to in that country. So yeah, it must be really hard for people that live between two different countries. I think you're always going to miss one of them.
Yeah, and because I mean, when I went to, so I spent a year out in the United States. So I mean, there is a big difference in culture between the UK and the United States, but you know, it wasn't something that was a shock to me because most of my friends and half my family are American, so that was an issue. But I think the most profound thing that I had was spending just a very short amount of time in places like Malawi and South Africa, and I really felt that those experiences really did inform my identity going forward. I'm just kind of thinking, particularly with your experiences in Colombia, you know, apart from the culture shock. I mean, I went to Malawi in 2013 on a teacher exchange, and I came back. I wouldn't say it was live. I came back a completely different person, but it certainly changed my worldview quite substantially. Did you get that kind of? Did you get that kind of sense yourself, like after being in Colombia and working with street children, that kind of stuff, that when you came back to the UK, you kind of like almost saw our country and where you were from, Bedford, Cambridgeshire, through a completely different lens?
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, I think it'd be unusual not to be changed in some way. You know, I think every place you go, you leave. I remember some imagery. I don't know if it was in a poem or something, about little bits of your clothing kind of caught on the barbed wire, you know, of the country that you're in. And I think you're forever changed by those experiences. Yeah, I mean, even to the extent that I think when you're speaking a different language, when I came back, I remember dreaming in that language for quite a while afterwards. And even now, sometimes there's a word that will appear to me in Spanish, and there isn't a really good equivalent in English. So you know, but it gives you a wider vocabulary on how to express yourself. They have a word in Colombia, detallista, which is somebody who's detallista. It means like someone who's detailed. So somebody who'd leave like little notes for you, little thank you notes, and it's just you know, like a personality trait, which is quite sweet. I don't think we have an equivalent over here. But yeah, little things like that, I guess, give you a wider appreciation for things.
Oh, detallista. Yeah, my best friend growing up in primary school, his mother was Colombian and his father was Italian, and then he was born and raised here in England. So that was very interesting. And I remember Melba having that really kind of like detallista, or yeah, I kind of recognized that kind of, I got a strong memory of her as a human being with that attention to detail. And she
attention to detail. That's a good phrase. Yeah,
like I wasn't very picky. This is relevant tangent. I wasn't a very picky eater growing up, and but the way certain foods were cooked, I was very particular about that. So like I really loved my mum's like roast potatoes, but I couldn't stand her Brussels sprouts and stuff like that, right? But Melba, she realized that I absolutely really liked lasagna. But when she made it, whenever I went round and that was staying at my friend's house, I really loved her lasagna. And she always made, apparently, I found out later that according to my friend, that she always made the lasagna a certain way whenever I came over. So that's why when you were talking about...
someone muy detallista. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So when you said
Colombia, little details that go to the extra special lengths, you know, to make you feel welcome and make you feel...
Right.
That
right. So that I can kind of, I mean, she's my data point of one, right?
Data point of one, yeah.
Of experiencing someone with a Colombian background, but I definitely saw that in her, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you get those those cultural influences that stay with you. You know, you pick ones that you like, that you want to carry through in your own life, and you might get them from family members. But yeah, I think when you travel, you pick up, you think, well, actually, I'm going to adopt that tradition or that way of doing things. I really appreciate that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's nothing. I think there's one thing to be said about going traveling and you're seeing architecture and physical history and geology and things like that. I mean, they can be very profound experiences themselves. But I think whenever I have very fond memories of places, it is always to do with people and my interactions with people. So one of my best friends now, Francis Mbakati, who I managed to get on this podcast a few seasons ago. You know, he's one of my best friends. He's one of my best friends for life. And like his story, like, really impacts me in a really profound way. And folks, I really do recommend you go back and listen to Francis's episode, because his uncle was actually was a political dissident and was exiled from Malawi because of his being in opposition to the government in power at the time. And it's such a profound story, and I didn't really realize how much it impacted him as a human being, and how he felt about his culture and his country. So I've meeting him and his friends and the children of the school that I went to had much more of a profound impact on me than, say, seeing the hillside and the mountains where it's so beautiful, but there's, you can see that it really did. You really did. Or even looking up in the sky at night and seeing the stars in such vivid way, because there was very little lighting, of course. And at the equator and experiencing south of the equator, it's just nothing compared to people. Yeah, nothing compared to the people. So I definitely am with you on that one. So that kind of like naturally brings us then to like what your pursuits today, right? So like you said, you were fascinated with human behavior. You studied geography at A-level. So if there's any geography educators listening, like this, like Rachel's a perfect person. I was like, I did geography A-level. This is what I'm doing now. Folks, international folks, A-levels are like the qualifications you take in the last 2 years of school if you stay on the school. So you could leave school at 16. You still need to do your basics, English and maths, into 18, but you have the option of staying another 2 years and doing really rigorous study at certain subjects, and we call them A-levels, and there are other kinds of qualification aids as well.
And Kit, I don't think you get the option now, do you? I think in my day we did, definitely. I think now you have to stay on, don't you, in the UK?
Yeah, you have to stay on. Yes, you have to stay on till 18, and you must complete. Yeah, so English, maths, and functional skills, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the specialist studies, that's where your options come in. So geography, history, biology, business studies, all those kind of stuff. So A-levels it has got a bit more complex now because of the way that our education is structured. Whereas a lot of my American folks who are listening, they're just like they're in schools till 18, 19. If they don't flunk out a year. So you then went on to do anthropology, and then this then led on to this kind of thing where you can't separate environmental sustainability with social sustainability. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that journey, the kind of going from, well, I love my A-levels, and in anthropology, I just love the study of social anthropology and human interaction, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
well, interestingly,
how does that lead to sustainability?
Yeah, well, I did maths, physics, and geography, and I was always, the plan was to do engineering. I was good at maths, I was good at physics.
Okay.
Geography I did because I was interested, but academically, it was more the maths and physics. And then I had a really good geography teacher. It's always the teachers, isn't it, that inspire you. Mrs. Earp and Dr. Beck, I remember, they're listening, really inspired me, particularly in human geography. And I think I took a year out. I travelled the world. I really fascinated by different cultures and how people lived. And I completely changed my options during that year out. So I changed and I decided to study social anthropology. I think my mum always said, follow what interests you. It's not necessarily what you're good at, but what interests you. And yeah, it was an amazing course. So I studied social anthropology, and within that there was a topic, there was a unit Richard, I've forgotten his surname, was the tutor, but it was around political anthropology. And he'd been studying, I think he was in Nicaragua, and he was looking at, in particular, the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions as well, post-war. I wrote my dissertation on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, and kind of that process of finding this truth of what happened and bringing those stories to light. So yeah, that was quite interesting. And then that was the bit that interested me most in anthropology. So then again, I looked at, and went on to do an internship and then further studies in human rights law. So and then that led me to look at kind of refugees, rights of refugee law, which I did my dissertation on, and then started working for a charity supporting asylum seekers in the UK. So it's just interesting, you when you study something, it opens up this whole new world to you, and you kind of pursue the bits that interest you. I mean, yeah, I could just stay in education my whole life. It's just fascinating, all there is to learn. But at some point, I had to go and earn some money and pay back all my student debts.
Right. Yeah. I mean, altruism never pays the bills, which is such a failure of society, really.
Such a shame.
I mean, if my altruism paid, but that's exactly that's an oxymoron, though. I completely see that. But I really love the fact that you seem to have found this natural fit. We were like, but these social elements which are really, really important, and the social justice, environmental justice, that kind of stuff really become really good bedfellows, because folks who may not be aware, like especially in the geography syllabus here in the United Kingdom, and I know in a few other syllabuses, school kids get taught the concept of sustainability in a really, really, in my opinion, in a really, really rigid colonial way, where you've got to have a balance between social environmental ability, economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability, right? So you've got, and then we used to teach it as like the three-legged stool. You've got to have a balance between the three-legged stool, because like, if you don't have one, you don't have the other. But the fact that, in my opinion, the fact that economic sustainability is in there at all just goes to show the kind of like the colonial nature of the model, because when did that come in? That came in when we started to value capitalism and the procurement of resources through material means, right? So rather than through favors, rather than through social favors. So as soon as we switch from a social to an economic model, we've gone from a traditional model into more of a capitalist Western model. So but the thing that really holds everything together, in my opinion, Rachel, and I really would love your comment on this, is that social aspect. I like to think of sustainability as the environment is the bubble. So rather than like a three-circle Venn diagram or a three-legged stool, I like to think as the environment as the entire bubble. It encompasses everything, because without an environment, you've got nothing. You've got nothing.
Yeah.
And then you've kind of got, and then anchoring this bubble, if you want to call it a balloon, fine. Anchoring this bubble is the social aspect. Because the way that we use the environment, the way we use it to nurture ourselves, to keep us healthy, interact with each other, etc., like that. So for me, it's the social aspect is the anchor, and then the economic is almost like the product of those two, if they're working really, really well. So I mean, economists probably listening to me and say, Kit, you're an absolute nutter. That's not how it works. We would argue full well that this ain't going to work this way. But I think if you look after the environmental and the social, then, and I know this is a very, very liberal, perhaps even Marxist way of looking at it, but, the economic kind of almost will be encompassed naturally by those things. It'll be stabilized by the social anchor and buoyed up by this bubble of environment. So that's my way of looking at it. My analogies are terrible. People probably are lost. I've probably lost people now. But what do you think on that aspect, though? Like, where do you see social sustainability in the kind of the grander scheme of things, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know if I can compete with bubbles and balloons, but it's interesting, isn't it? You put things. We all visualize things, don't we, to explain it to ourselves and to explain to others. When we're trying to get across a new strategy or get staff on board, then we use different ways of visualizing it. We had a really complicated wheel before with like 8 different segments, and now we've got people, planet, places. And I like the alliteration. It's really clear. But yeah, it's people that negatively impact and positively impact the environment. You definitely can't separate the two. I mean, the effects of climate change are having huge effects on people around the world, disproportionately to the ones that are influencing climate change, sadly. And then in terms of economic sustainability, I mean, when I come now from a corporate background, I've always worked in the charity sector, but certainly in a corporate environment, there's that word again, but in a corporate setting, the company is going to always be focused on shareholders. So the economic sustainability of the company has always been number one. And I think we're seeing a shift in that. I think we're starting to see, certainly in terms of reporting, environmental reporting, companies are having to do this a lot more. I think we had a lot of greenwashing in the past, and I don't think that is cutting the mustard anymore. They're having to really report on facts and figures. And we've got these at Kier. We've got this science-based target, and we have to meet that. Otherwise we're not going to get investment in the future. And also people, in terms of people that want to come and work with us. The certainly recent generations, I don't think want to work for companies that don't fit their ethics or their ideals. So they're starting to ask companies, what are you doing about sustainability? And so if we want to attract people to our business, these are important things as well. So yeah, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but I think that they're interlinked. I don't know how I picture it, but they are inseparable. Environment. Yeah. Maybe a Venn diagram.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good way of. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good way of making sure that starting at a high school level could be understood. I used to tell that I used to shock the I used to shock through my education. I used to say, right, okay, so we want to protect the environment. Yay, brilliant, like that. So then I used to say, okay, let's protect the rainforest. It's really important. We want to be environmental sustainability, because it's like. So I said, okay, so I'll tell you what we'll do then. What we'll do, we'll all get a bank loan, right? And we'll purchase like plane tickets for ourselves, go and buy some guns, and we'll shoot anybody who's cutting down trees in the rainforest. Yeah, isn't that great? And they're like, no, why would you want to do that? No, it says like, but what's really interesting is that I don't think ever have I. Maybe it's the teaching thing that the kids weren't as confident with the concept of economic sustainability, but every single time they'd say, "Why would you kill them? Why would you kill them?" Yeah, but you're being environmentally sustainable, aren't you? It's like by stopping. So they kind of grasp that aspect. It's like, well, actually, no, you can't go around shooting. I mean, it was an extreme example just to prove a point, right? But not one single kid said, "Yeah, hang on a minute, we've got to pay the money back for the loan, so that's not economically sustainable, is it?" And you're giving money and finance to weapon industries and so. So, but anyway, but it was a really good. It was a good provocation to start discussion. Yeah. So, becoming a climate ambassador, then, Rachel. So I know that you came across it, through me, and you came across it through when we did our launch event in September and stuff like that. But you're still here. You're still talking to me. We're still engaging and partnering, teaming up after a few months. This is great. So a couple of questions then, because of the theme of the season, is what made you think that a climate ambassador was a really good badge that you wanted to have, and what kind of things? So for here in the East of England, particularly in your part of the East of England, what is it that you can say, oh, I can help you as a school or you as staff at a school with? So why do you do what you do, and what can you offer to schools?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, my job title is Social Sustainability Manager at Kier, but I am very much about environmental sustainability as well. I think again, I don't think you can separate them very easily. So although I don't get involved in kind of in compliance issues on our sites and things like that, I certainly would be involved in, for example, promoting green skills in careers. A lot of what my role is about getting people on board, staff engagement on ideas. So it might be things like getting them to think about how they can be more sustainable on site, whether it's reducing, like having a green travel plan and reducing their miles, the commuting miles in some way, looking at waste recycling, right up to, using solar powered plant equipment and reducing the carbon in design as well. We talk to design managers about how we can, they're thinking about operational carbon as well in the building. So, in terms of a climate ambassador, I mean, I think you've got, when you're passionate about the environment, you look in your own life about ways you can have less of an impact, reduce your carbon footprint. I'd like to think that my footprint when I leave this planet will hopefully be very small, but I know in the past I've, things like taking flights. Last year I didn't take any flights, but I have certainly taken lots of flights in the past. But you start to think about these things. So as a climate ambassador, you want to share those thoughts with the wider population. It's a really good opportunity for me. So I can, I've been preparing a presentation that I can deliver to secondary schools. I'm hoping to adapt it as well for primary schools, where we talk about sustainability. We talk about measuring our carbon footprint and how we can do that. And I think sometimes as well, as a young person, you feel very limited on those changes you can make. You kind of live in your parents' or guardians' house. You have little decision making over things, and I think it's important for young people to feel empowered that there are things they can do, and actually they can raise awareness as well with the people who are making those decisions for them. So I would like to be able to speak to young people about those things. I think they are the change agents, they're the future, and also about the kind of careers there's growing number of careers, certainly in construction, around green skills. In fact, every job I think has sustainability in it now, but there are jobs that are specifically geared towards sustainability, so it's making sure people are aware of them, because it's changing so fast. The jobs that are available now weren't available when I was at school. So from a careers perspective, making sure they're aware. But I think I know there's a lot of organizations really set up to do this already and come up, support schools with climate action plans, but I would love to get involved in that as well. If there's anything I can do to support the school. I know all schools now have to have a climate action plan, so that's a new requirement for schools. So us as climate ambassadors are there to support them on that journey.
Absolutely, 100%. And folks, it's like, if there'll be Rachel's contact details regards to social media, but in the description, obviously you can get in contact with me and I can put you in contact with Rachel. So if you're just probably, I don't usually ask this question, but because like where we are located, I know it's quite difficult sometimes for ambassadors to get around if they're not exactly in a city. But is it mostly Cambridge and Ely, those kind of places that you've really got most accessibility to? Peterborough. So if the school was to come to you and say, Rachel, we really would love for you to come in, or and I know you can probably do things online as well, but if you were to physically go in and either help a school, what's your kind of area of operation?
Well, I operate across East Anglia and the Midlands, although I've got my team who are more locally based. So I would probably say East Anglia, Cambridgeshire, Norfolk, Suffolk, Northants, Bedfordshire. I've got a plug-in hybrid, so that does 40 miles on electric only. So if we're thinking about solar energy from my solar panels, then that would be a 40-mile coverage.
There you go, folks. So, but that's still quite a big range, folks. So if any doubt, get in contact. We still be able to do it. We've got climate ambassadors all around the country, and we can see what we can do for you there. But you've actually got a very good segue there, Rachel, because I want you to spill the beans now. So we're going to spill some beans here, and that is, I want you to talk a little bit about your house, because you've spoken to me about this before, and I'm really interested to find out a bit more. You have a passive house that you've made net zero, and I'm going to share this for people who are watching us. You get the added bonus that we get to look at things as well. So I'm going to add this to the screen. So this is from the Passive House Trust. It's like from official kind of like the kind of, what is it? It's the principles of a passive house. So what I'd like you to do, Rachel, talk just a little bit about your like what you've done with your house and kind of like the principle. You've got 5 principles of a passive house here. So talk us a bit about through this and why each of these things are important.
Brand new buildings, like the passive house certification is for new builds. We've done a renovation, so it's the same principles as passive house, but you would call the certification ENERFIT, which is, it's a slight, I just want to be really clear in terminology, but it's basically passive house principles. So we've taken a 1968 chalet bungalow, and we've first of all, we've turned it upside down. So we've got the living area open plan upstairs and the bedrooms downstairs, and then we stripped it right back to the walls. We kept the walls and kept half the roof on, and changed one of the roofs. And the main thing about passive house is having it completely airtight, so to the point that we were putting plasterboards in, and if you take a screw out and move it, you have to put this special green gunk in that won't contract when it's dried. So everything has to be 100% airtight. It's a much stricter level of airtightness than you get from normal building regulations. And then secondly, loads of insulation. I'm really thinking about those thermal bridges. So we've got a big south-facing window. It's a huge solar gain. We have no heating upstairs. There is a wood burner, which rarely gets used. It's just there as a backup if on a really, really cold day. But generally, the solar gain through the window, I mean, I'll come upstairs in the morning, like, it's been -4 outside, and the coldest it will drop to probably upstairs 18, 19 degrees, and then the sun comes out. And then the third thing, really, it's amazing. And the third thing, really, and also with that solar gain, you do need to think about summer shading. So in winter, when you want the sun and the sun's low in the sky, it shines into the glass. And in the summer, when the sun is a lot higher, we've got an overhang, and we've also got an external blind, so you can block out that solar gain, because you want it to be cool in summer and without using any aircon. We've got no air conditioning. But what we have got is this thing called mechanical ventilation heat recovery. So you can see all your fancy pipes on there. You've got red, orange and blue. So it's very difficult on a renovation, but because it was a chalet bungalow, we had the eave, and we could run the ducting. So we've got ducting, and every room has fresh air piped into it. And then there's a machine that sits on the landing, hidden away under the eave, and that pulls in fresh air from outside, and it takes the heat from the external air. So the external air is taken from your bathroom and your if you've got like a utility room, and that takes the heat from that air before mixing it with the incoming air. So you don't have to open the windows. You get a really fresh, dry, ventilated atmosphere. And I think people, when they come in, they do notice the difference. So a lot of our kind of houses that are built in the UK are very stuffy and unventilated. Like, you might get a little trickle vent on the windows, and that's it really. And that just really isn't up to scratch. That's where you get a lot of mold and kind of those damp conditions sometimes.
Yeah.
So
wow. So
it was a big job, but we were net zero for the first couple of years. With the plug-in car, less so now. But in terms of just our living environment and not thinking about the external, we are net zero carbon. So the solar panels on the roof produce the same amount of energy that we use each year. Obviously, we get more solar energy in the summer, and what you really need is in the winter. So your battery storage doesn't really cut the mustard, but you do give it back to the grid, and then you draw it from the grid, obviously in the winter. So,
that's amazing, Rachel. We've got here quite an imperfect system. We've done it. I mean, this house is 100 years old. It was originally built. It was one of like the very first council houses, so it was built to a certain design. And we do have problem with airflow through the house, and we do have a spec, particularly with like in this room in particular. I know I've got my virtual background, folks, but we got it kind of like where the roof like kind of comes down and like cuts through the room a little bit, so a part of the ceiling is angled here, and those parts of the bedrooms where the ceiling is angled because of the roof, they get a lot of moisture on them, and we have problems with mold on those. But it's got better since we've got solid wall insulation, which has helped quite a lot. We're able to heat the house a lot more both passively but also with the air source heat pump, so that's helped a lot as well. But we've done as much as we can.
It's very difficult.
It's challenging, isn't it? It is challenging, and I think we were going back to about being social sustainability as well. This is not something, of course, that everybody can afford to do, or that everybody can access either. So
agreed. I mean, we got a Green Homes grant to replace the oil boiler for the air source heat pump, and that that will pay for itself, that will cover itself. But even that, not everyone can do. It's a huge upheaval to the house, and I think they need to, if they can come up with more solutions for retrofitting old houses, but even like building new houses to a better spec. You go to Scandinavia and all this stuff is kind of standard, but we're still building houses that are really poorly insulated, poorly ventilated, and that's just not on, I don't think.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's still work continuing. Can I?
Yeah, can you hear it? I'm so sorry. Yeah, someone downstairs.
No, that's fine. It's adding to the fact that all the work is still happening. Right. We're going to play a couple of games now. So the first game we're going to play is Barking Up the Wrong Tree, and
love it.
Nick, Stuff Matters, and so what we'll do then is that I'm going to read you. Well, I'm going to try and be clever with this because I'm going to read you a part of this book, and something that is a fake story, which is not in this book, but it could sound like it might be in this book. So you've got to try and figure out which one's the real one, which one's the not real one. I'm usually pretty good with this kind of stuff. I think I might have just what the industry would say called this one in. This might be a bit too easy. All right. So what I'm going to do, because I need you to know that I'm not reading them from the screen or the book. I've got my other screen here, right? So if I pull both the fake story and the book here, you won't be able to tell.
I'll be able to tell. Okay.
Right.
Give it a go.
So I'm both holding this up at a screen height. So the first story. So the first part. So you're going to assume that Mark has written both of these in his book, right? Stuff Matters. So the first paragraph says this, and this is about because of the job that you do, it's all about construction materials and stuff like that. And I've chosen the topic of 3D printed materials, right? So the first thing he said, so this is actually the second bit. He says that not only are 3D printing is synonymous with construction. However, there has been a movement to have 3D printed edibles. For example, the company called Stakeholder Foods claims to have created the first editable 3D fish fillet. It says that their printed fish can be cooked and seasoned to taste just like real fish, and it even has flakes in the mouth too. And this method began with growing fish cells in a lab. These are added to a bio ink that goes in a special 3D printer. The 3D printer then squirts out a pattern to create the edible fish. Many species of fish face extinction across the globe, and this company hopes that their 3D printed fish can be a tasty alternative that's better for the environment. So there he's talking about the fact that 3D printing has moved on so far. You can actually use bio ink, which is digestible, right? A bit earlier on in this paragraph, he says what was the one of the first medical uses of 3D printing, right? So he says here, this project started with a patient with a diseased windpipe, which needed to be removed because it was cancerous. Without a replacement, the patient would require mechanical aids to breathe for the rest of their life. Now, the first step was to scan the patient using X-ray technique common in hospitals called a CAT scan. CAT scans are often used to find cancerous lumps in the brain and other organs, but in this case, the CAT scan was used to provide a 3D image of the patient's windpipe. And this image was then taken to a 3D printer, a new type of manufacturing technique, which creates whole objects from digital information. And so they installed this 3D printed windpipe, so this person could no longer have any cancerous cells in his throat. So, which one do you think, Rachel, is the fake story? So
you did very well at reading them out. I couldn't tell
I've read
by your
them
delivery.
both, but they could be both paragraphs in the same chapter about 3D printing, right? But which one is actually the real paragraph in his book, and which one's the fake paragraph, which is not in his book?
The printing, it just sounds crazy, but printing the fish fillet is the real one. And
it sounds
fake.
And actually I'm thinking, and as a Star Trek nerd, you're thinking, well, 3D printers are probably replicators. They're replicating food all the time on Star Trek. That's got to be the right one. I can't believe you managed to dupe
Did I get it wrong? Did you dupe me? Because I'm sure I read something about them printing steaks.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It sounds horrendous, but not something I'd want to eat. But yeah, I'm sure they created fake steaks, didn't they? But they're probably
that's probably
growing cells.
Yeah, that's probably where it is. It's I think it's kind of like there is like this whole thing now about fake meat and which can be pretty So I mean this website where I got it from is a little bit old, so it's possible that things have moved on a little bit. But
that's amazing around the windpipe, though. I can't believe that.
But yeah, so this is the chapter called Immortal in Mark's book Stuff Matters, folks. It's a fact. Oh, wow, my background, because it's getting darker outside, my background's getting worse. It's like black snow now. So yeah, it's fantastic. It's such a great book, and I'm also proud that I am one of the. I can't remember. This is so funny. I just had it in my head about we're part of both this advisory group and mentorship program. I think it's called Project Earth or something like that. I'll put it down but we're both on it's quite an absolute honor to be on the same advisory board and mentorship program as him. So shout out to my colleague. He's a sort of colleague, which is quite funny. Okay, we're gonna finish off now, Rachel, off that little bit of fun with We Are All Geographers now. So which is where we link all our guests together. We daisy chain all our guests together for you, where they give a word that you've got to talk about for 30 seconds, right? So last week we had Tulsi Prabhakaran, and she was given the word risk by the previous guest to that, Jonathan Allen. So then when I asked Tulsi about what word to give to you, Rachel, she wants you to riff about the word hope for 30 seconds. So
that's a nice
do you think you can? Would you like to talk about the word hope for 30 seconds?
Yeah.
We don't have a choice. It's part of the program. But
yes.
Okay, when you're ready, I will start the timer.
Okay, so hope. I think this is a great word to have. I think without hope, it's very difficult to have the motivation and the action that propels us forward and thinks that actually we can make a difference. If you read the news every day, you would feel very unhopeful and very negative. So I think hope is what sustains us and makes us think that the world is going to become a better place, and we are not going to go above 1.5 degrees.
Yeah,
and isn't too bad, is it?
Yeah, and you know what, folks? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about this whole 1.5 degrees and all this kind of stuff, or 2 degrees. we need to forget about the numbers and keep it as low as possible. It's as simple as that, really. There's, people say, oh, we might have missed 1.5, so focus on 2. It's like, no, if we're going to miss 1.5, let's now focus on 1.5001 and then 1.5002. Let's just keep it. You save lives and safeguarding people's livelihoods for everything that you do.
It was such a shame as well, that headline. Such a shame that headline came on the coldest day of the year as well. It was very hard to picture it being the hottest year ever last year, when we were waking up to -4 degrees. But yes, that is the reality.
Indeed. So Rachel, have you got anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
My geography teachers, Mrs. Airpen and Dr. Beck, they're still around. My A-level geography teachers that inspired me to go on and study social anthropology. Thank you.
Oh, shout out to geography teachers. That's so lovely. And I know you're on LinkedIn. So is that the best place for people to contact you and get in contact and network with you?
Yeah. I guess you'll share my LinkedIn details. Yeah, I can't remember what they are.
I can't mind them either, because some people have like LinkedIn and then their name, and then some people have like their name and loads of numbers and alphanumerics after it. So who knows? But I'll find it and I'll put it in the description for folks. So there you go, folks. You have met one of my wonderful climate ambassadors here in the east of England. So if you're located in the east of England, Cambridgeshire area and the wider area around that, into Norfolk, Suffolk, towards Northamptonshire, stuff like that, Rachel is the person you can go to. So many things Rachel can do for you, not just about that really fantastic climate education and green careers kind of stuff, which you have to do schools as part of your Gatsby benchmarks, all that kind of stuff, but also like helping you with your climate action plans and the requirements under the Department for Education. So please do make contact. Rachel, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, and look forward to the next time that we work together.
Great. Thank you so much, Kit, for inviting me on. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.